are live with OG Stick High. Get your blunts ready. Get your drink ready. It's about to go down.
Wake up, it's the morning.
It's that time of year across Arizona. Working in high temperatures can cause a workplace injury. Cramps, rashes, exhaustion, dizziness, even heat stroke. Know the signs and protect yourself from a heat stress injury. Get plenty of water, rest, and shade while at work. Learn more from the Industrial Commission of Arizona. Just visit heat.az.gov. That's heat.az.gov. This message is sponsored by the Industrial Commission of Arizona.
This is not what you'd call an ideal coworker. He behaves poorly in others' workspaces.
So I said, of course it itches. That's what the ointment's for.
Ignores boundaries. Microwaves fish. His poor judgment isn't limited to the office. He brings it with him on the road. So please, stay aware in work zones.
Why is the volume not working? Where's the volume? On. Where's the volume? The volume's not working. Where is the fucking volume? Fucking crazy.
each and every one of our relationships. Ultimately, it'll be in your hands, the voters, to decide where our country goes and where the world goes with what you do every day and with your vote. We can still become a type 1 civilization. That's where we can harness all the world's energy cleanly and renewably, where we can provide for the adequate infrastructure for commerce, education, and national defense. We can do all these things. We can protect our environment. But ultimately, if we don't solve for partisanship and for stabilizing the debt, then we won't be able to. I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening. Please go to mendoza.vote to learn more or donate. Thank you.
Mr. Mendoza, thank you. We will start with our first question to Mr. Zink. Immigration and border security continue to be at the top of concerns for Arizona voters. Do you believe there's a border crisis at our southern border? And how would you define what a border crisis actually means?
Absolutely, Steve. Thank you very much. So one of the things that's, I've been to the border many times. I have seen firsthand the millions of people that are coming across. They're military-aged people, and because of this, we need to sit down and we need to focus on exactly what this issue is. We need to have people remain in their countries before they come over. They need to be vetted. Make sure that the sex trafficking and the women trafficking and children that are being trafficked, along with drugs, all of these things are a huge crisis. We need to address those. And so by doing that, we need to set down, make sure that we have legislation and that we secure our borders, because this is a melting pot. This is something where people come in and we should be Americans together. It's so important that we do that. And this is so important for us. So yes, the crisis there, we need to make sure that that crisis is met head on and that we prevent the military-aged men from coming into this country.
Mr. Mendoza, you have as much time as you'd like to respond to that.
Could you ask that again?
Yes. Do you believe there is a border crisis? And if so, how would you define what a crisis actually means at this moment?
I would define a crisis as any situation where anybody is dying needlessly. And there are people on the border needlessly. So yes, I would define that as a crisis. And along the lines of what Zink was saying, this is pretty accurate. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Mr. Singh, the next question. There has been a bipartisan efforts in the past. It was when then Arizona had U.S. Senate members as part of the so-called Gang of Eight, or much more recently to implement so-called comprehensive immigration reform. Will you support a measure that would include increased border security and a path to citizenship for some undocumented immigrants?
Oh, absolutely. So let's say take it head on with DACA. Here's the thing, 1.16 million people are DACA here in our country. They pay $500 a year just to not be deported. That is $580 million that is given to our government. What have they done with this? Where have they actually helped our citizens to find a pathway to citizenship? They haven't, because this is free money that's not regulated. It doesn't go anywhere. And so we need to make sure that we allocate that. But more importantly, let's find a way to stop that. Let's get the federal government out of the business of making sure that you can stay in this country by paying $500. That all has to go away.
Mr. Mendoza, will you support an effort to comprehensive immigration reform that would include a path to citizenship?
Yes, obviously, but I also don't like the idea of comprehensive immigration reform. I think the best route is incremental change, so small policy change as opposed to just one huge package.
How would you propose that be?
I don't know. I've never been in Congress, so when I get in there, I would have to try to propose that. Honestly, it's the partisanship that's the biggest issue, so until we can actually maybe go on a retreat as Congress people to Flagstaff, I don't know.
Let me ask a follow-up on that then. If we're talking about what some people have criticized being patchwork, is there one aspect of, if you don't want comprehensive immigration reform, is there one aspect of what is in a plan like that you would take on first?
I would like to double the spending right now on border and immigration security. Right now it's about $20 billion. We can easily get that to $40 billion. So if we get that first and then we can start the path to citizenship, that'd be nice. I also would recommend that we reduce the number of immigration for the next 5 years to try to balance out and figure out where we are and where we want to go. And then in 5 years we can restart the a process to allow more immigration in.
If I may go back to your answer, Mr. Sick, somehow do you propose also that offer of immigration reform, as you were saying, that the need for that because of the crisis on the border, but would they be a path to citizenship that you would offer in that solution?
One of the things is that's really important that we need to understand. My opponent just said he didn't know, and he didn't have an understanding as to what was going on, and he's going to go to Washington, D.C. That's too late. Here's the most important thing that we need to understand. We have to be aggressive in this. Spending more money, that raises our taxes. We have to take what we have. We have $580 million that is paid by DACA, and we need to take that money, and then we need to sit down and have this. I talked with a lady just the other day, and she said that she's been in this country since she was 4 years old. 17 years she's been trying to be a citizen in this country. There cannot be anything. So what we want to do is we're going to go in aggressively. We're going to look at with all of the attorneys and make sure that there is a 5-year way to go to citizenship.
Understood.
And more importantly is that we have to get rid of charging DACA the amount of prices that they're now faced with.
Thank you.
Can I give a rebuttal to that?
Okay.
It's arrogant to assume that anybody who hasn't been in Congress knows what it's like to be in Congress. That's ridiculous. There's nobody in Congress that knows how to be a congressman, or else we would have already solved all these issues. You can't possibly assume that you know all the answers on how to solve these issues. We don't know, or else these issues would have been solved. So, yeah.
Well, let me ask the experience question then. Neither one of you have been in Congress, so maybe this could have been an opening statement. So, Mr. Zink, specifically, what's a minute or so answer on why your experience, just as a citizen, would be better to have you in Congress?
Absolutely. So I've been to Washington, D.C. I've worked with Andy Biggs and Paul Gosar and Debbie Lesko. We have talked extensively about what are some of the problems here in Arizona. I've been there in their offices, and I've talked with them directly and trying to solve these issues that are very real to the Hispanic people. They're wanting, this is the greatest country in the world. They're coming here in droves because they want the American dream. And yet we are preventing them from having that. We need to sit down and look at this. So yes, you can go there and not have the experience, but you also need to understand what is important to the people and how they're getting to become citizens.
Mr. Mendoza, do you want the experience answer?
Sure.
As far as what you've lived and what you think, yeah.
I'm just a regular guy that lives the regular life, but my academic background has been in political science and human rights. And I'd like to ask anybody if they can even define a human right. Not to call anybody out, but I bet you none of us here can even define that, right? It's important that we understand that a human right is a claim by someone on someone for something essential to human dignity. And there's nobody else on stage that understands the technical theory better than me.
Well, we definitely can agree that there's a crisis and it's very complex, the situation in the border. But we also cannot ignore that the #1 commerce partner that we have is Mexico. That border feeds family at both sides of the border, both countries. So if there was a way that you would propose to have a functioning border that would take account immigration, but also commerce, what would that be like? And Mr. Mendoza.
Yeah, we do trade a lot with Mexico, and we've always wanted to have a trilateral agreement between Mexico, Canada, and the United States. I personally don't agree with that necessarily. I think we do need to bring back our manufacturing into the United States. Trade with Mexico is essential, but take for example, blueberries and avocados. In Mexico, they're burning down avocado farms and blueberry farms because the cartels own them. So whenever I buy a blueberry in the United States, I only buy American-grown blueberries. Because when you buy a blueberry from Mexico, it will come with it's blood. It's like a blood diamond, but it's a blood blueberry. Does that make sense? Avocados also.
Mr. Singh?
Sure. One of the things is that in working with Pemex, we have an American company that I was working with, and we went to Mexico. And what it does is it caps the flaring in Mexico with the drilling that takes place. What we need to do is we need to make sure that the jobs both in Mexico and in the United States, that we work together. That is something that we can do. The other aspect is that the cartel was also very prevalent in trying to disrupt this. We need to, as a country, need to deal with the Mexican cartel. We haven't had that. And so this is something that I also want to address and make sure that we get the right people in place so that we can handle the Mexican cartel.
Okay. Gentlemen, let's move on to the general question of the economy. Mr. Mendoza, we'll start with you. Inflation has cooled from its highest levels, but is still affecting families across this district and across the country. What steps would you take as a member of Congress to try to make life more affordable for your constituents?
The economy question, I have like 20 points under in my notes because it's such a complicated subject, right? We have the Federal Reserve, they control the interest rates. Interest rates have been low for the last 10 years. And right what we're probably going to be facing is likely stagflation. I don't know if you've seen Jamie Dimon's presentation where he talks about his prediction for the economy, and it's not, things are going to keep getting worse. The Federal Reserve started raising interest rates 8 quarters ago. Usually you don't start to see the ramifications from those increased interest rates until 10 quarters. And it happens that it can go to 16 quarters. So we have about 2 to 8 more quarters before we're going to enter a recession. And it probably won't be the regular kind of recession. It's going to be a deflationary recession or a stagflation. So this means we're going to continue to have high interest rates and unemployment is going to keep going up. The only way that we can stop that is by increasing revenue and decreasing spending. But it has to focus on stabilizing the debt because the debt and the interest payment on that debt is cutting into our ability as a country to invest.
Mr. Zink, your reply.
One of the things that we need to start addressing is this. We have to stop printing money. That's the number one thing that creates all of the inflation that we have. Also, we need to start putting back drilling in our country. See, the thing is that if you go back 6 years ago, pre-pandemic, we paid $1.89 a gallon. Today I paid $60 today to fill up my gas tank. We have to put Arizona people back to work. Those manufacturing companies that have left and gone to China and have gone to other places, we need to bring those back. The greatest country in the world are our asset, and it's the people that we now can provide those jobs. This is what will start to decrease our inflation. We start to increase our drilling, provide the manufacturing here, and then we give good paying jobs, and then we let the people spend the money where they want it spent instead of the government taking it out and increasing this inflation to where we can't even, you know, they're making 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet.
Perfect. Well, there are some technical issues that we want to mention.
Gentlemen, you'll need to know about this as well. Due to some technical errors at the beginning of our production, each of you will get a 3-minute closing statement. Want to let our viewers know that as well. So we will add on to the closing statement you'll each get as we move on.
That way we can prepare. Well, following up with more questions, do you believe somehow, and this question is from Mr. Mendoza, we'll start with you, do you believe that the action led to the SHIP Act and the Inflation Reduction Act has led to the increased prosperity here in Arizona and also diversified the economy here in our state?
No, I don't think it has. Just from my personal experience, I can barely afford eggs. Like, I like to buy Happy Eggs, so I don't like to buy the cheapest eggs, and those are $12 for 8. Like, nothing has gone down, and inflation isn't going to come down. The Federal Reserve is keeping interest rates high so that inflation stays high so that we can cut employment. That's the Federal Reserve's goal with their inflation, reduce employment. So until employment goes down, inflation is going to keep going up. And isn't that messed up?
Now, if I may follow up on that, respond also, Mr. Mendoza, for the common family out there trying to make meets and that they are probably not into the Happy Eggs, do you believe there has been a change here with the economy?
No. My family doesn't buy Happy Eggs, and they have been complaining significantly about the increase in costs, and costs are going to keep going up. Nothing that Congress has done is going to change that.
Now, Mr. Singh.
Absolutely. There is a way to respond, and that is that we have to now stop the inflation. I lived through the 70s when Jimmy Carter, and we had some of the highest inflation rates. We now have higher inflation rates. What was it that Ronald Reagan did? Was he put the people back to work. He then invested in military. We started doing the things of taking the greatest country in the world and putting it to work, and it started reducing inflation. We started giving money back into the pockets of the individuals. This is what needs to happen now. And only through giving good paying jobs will we be able to do that. And that way that one person can have one job instead of having two jobs like Ernie and Donia, where they both work two jobs just to make ends meet, just to send their children to a school so that they can be educated the way that they're supposed to instead of being indoctrinated.
I actually had two quick follow-up questions, one for each of you based on the answers you just gave. Mr. Mendoza, the Federal Reserve is saying that it is actually keeping interest rates high in order to keep inflation or to bring it down.
Right.
So you're saying that that's just a message in the media, that that's actually not what they're doing?
No, actually, I might have misspoke.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what they bring inflation down, but then unemployment goes up.
Okay.
And we're likely going to hit a stagflation point where inflation will stay high and unemployment high, and we won't be able to do anything at that point.
Okay,
The Federal
thanks.
Reserve will.
Thanks for clarifying that. And follow up, Mr. Zink, when it comes to, there are a lot of folks who are saying that the perception is that inflation remains high because we go to the grocery store, we go to the gas pumps, and inflation is still high in those places, much higher prices than we're used to seeing. But we're also seeing other things calm down. Are you saying that inflation is not coming down because those two things that most people see every day are not coming down, or are you seeing that as a broader base of inflation?
Well, one of the things is that anybody who has gone to the gas pump and paid, like I did today, $60 just to fill up my gas tank, that is translated to the people who then bring your food to your grocery store. Then they transfer that cost into the groceries. We need to sit down and start putting manufacturing, start doing our drilling, start having increased oil and gas so that we can start lowering the gas prices that will then cause the effect. Is it going to overnight? No, it doesn't, but that's a great place to start, and we already have a track record from a president that actually turned our country around in the 80s.
The economy definitely impacts directly housing, and anywhere you drive or you travel here in our state, you see building and construction of new homes. Unfortunately, many of the households or families here cannot afford a new house, right? So with that said, housing affordability is a significant problem in the district that you are trying to represent, the state of Arizona and many parts of the country. What actions do you believe needs to be taken to make housing more accessible and more affordable for the common family? Mr. Mendoza.
I've been trying to buy a house for about 3 years, and I haven't been able to. 3 years ago, I got outbid on the house that I wanted. In the next 2 years, I just kept trying to find something, and there's pretty much low supply here in Arizona, and the interest rates were too high, and I couldn't afford the payments on a house that I used to be able to afford. Over time, interest rates went up. I could no longer afford them. So right now, 11% of FHA borrowers are delinquent. And unfortunately, I hate to say this, but over the next 20 to 40 years, the housing supply will go up as our population changes. So in 40 years, we're probably going to have a lot more houses than we need right now. Right now, we are extremely low on housing. And what I would like most, and I know it's not the most popular topic, but I would like down payment assistance. Down payment assistance seems to be the one thing that keeps so many people back, including myself. Because every time I save up a down payment, what happens? My dog has tears her ACL, and I have to pay $6,000 on that surgery. I have the income to pay for the house, but I can never save up for the down payment because something always comes up.
Thank you. Mr. Singh, your response?
So one of the things is that if we do housing assistance, that money has to come from somewhere, and that's taxpayer money. We increase our taxes in order to do this. This is almost the same idea of having America pay for college students' loans. This is not this is not something that we need to do. What we need to do is address the issue head on, which is we need to take on BlackRock. We need to take on the people that are actually buying up the homes, and they're buying them at the premium price, which then skyrockets those prices in areas so that people like David can't afford a down payment or a home. We start addressing it at the core issue where these companies that are actually driving this and are the thread behind it, We need to make sure and go after them and cut their legs out from underneath them so that it's the actual persons that are buying the houses, not these corporations.
Can I give a rebuttal to that? The only issue with that solution is that people like BlackRock, Blackstone, they don't actually own that many homes. They own a significant portion, but the majority of the owners of homes are people that own 1, 2, 3 homes, and they rent those homes out. They're mom and pop landowners. Those are the majority. So if we're going to attack mom and pop landowners, it's going to be a bad recipe. So.
Well, Mr. Zink, what would enforcement of that sort of thing look like?
All right, so one of the things is that we're not attacking the mom and pops. We're actually allowing them to thrive. The reason why we take these companies, the corporations, and we prevent them from actually doing this is so that the mom and pops can actually do this. They give rent so that's a little bit more affordable for people in the low income housing. These are issues that we can address immediately. But the thing is that these corporations are buying millions of dollars and millions of homes across the United States and driving the prices up so it's not affordable for the average person like you and I.
And I agree, but attacking just Blackstone and BlackRock, that's not going to solve it.
Now, next question, and we'll start with Mr. Singh. And this, how much involvement should the government have in housing affordability? How will you use public resources to address this dramatic problem right now, serious problems that we have here in Arizona?
Absolutely. So with all of the real estate people that I work with across the state, and what they're telling me is that what we need to do is we need to and go into the low income housing and we start fixing them up. We have programs that will actually do this, but we can do this privately and not federal spending or state spending. We don't use other people's tax monies, but we have investors that will actually invest in incorporating the people, and we can put them to work in restoring the homes. Then we can actually do things like veterans tunnel the towers, where they're actually using private funds, they're restoring houses, and they're turning them into things that veterans can come in at no cost whatsoever to them, and it helps them out. We have to look for that more than having federal funds and federal government come into play.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Mr. Mendoza?
Yeah, besides the idea of helping veterans when they need housing, because they deserve that. They serve the country. They deserve that. But the idea of just giving housing to people isn't the right approach. What we need to do is incentivize ownership. So people have to be the owners of their homes. So if we can build buildings where people are purchasing the apartment, not just renting it indefinitely, that's how we create stability. My family has benefited significantly from down payment assistance. The only reason I'm standing here is because my family was able to get down payment assistance in 2008 for their home, which we got to live in since then. So that's essential. My family has provided millions of dollars to the state because of them being able to own that home. They've started businesses, they've helped the community, and they would have done none of that if they weren't the owners of their own home.
Mr. Mendoza.
So can I that real
Okay.
quick? So one of the things is Nancy Pelosi stated that you will own nothing and you will like it. The thing is that what we have to do now is we have to sit down, and the way that we control people is through property. And by taking property away, we have to be able to get affordable housing. And the way that we do this is that we do go after the major incorporation cancer that is on our country, that is buying up these homes and pricing them completely out of the price of the average person. That's what's important.
That segues into our next question. What efforts have you either heard about or witnessed? We know homelessness has been a major issue in this district, but across the country as well. Some would attribute that to affordability. There are other factors as well. Have you heard of any ideas? Have you seen any ideas in action that you would like this district, the state, the country to take to help homeless individuals?
I would like to incentivize for restrictions on rent. I don't want people to just, every building that gets built in this city is a rental, especially if you go downtown in Phoenix. It's so hard to find a building that you can actually buy a little studio, even like a 700 square foot studio. It's so difficult. And the only places that have that kind of affordability have a $900 HOA fee. So I can't even afford to live there. So if we get out of the rental market and we start incentivizing businesses to sell these buildings, sell the apartments, that's how we can fix a lot of this. And also, we have so many buildings that aren't being used. 30% of our downtown apartment buildings, and I know that's one idea that's been floated around, the old commercial buildings and turning them into apartments. I think that'd be cool too, but they have to be owner-occupied apartments, not rentals.
Mr. Zink, before you reply though, there is this acronym many of us know of, NIMBY, not in my backyard.
Right.
And those ideas sound great until they go into neighborhoods. We've heard, obviously not this district, we've heard folks in Scottsdale were concerned, wait a second, there's an unused hotel, you're putting homeless people there? Not in my backyard. So how would you deal with communities and neighborhoods who don't want that?
Well, thankfully we're not in Scottsdale, and you can't just put a homeless person in a room. They're gonna shoot up drugs. Like, we have a serious drug and mental health issue, so it has a comprehensive approach if you're gonna try to house somebody like that. Yeah, so it's kind of apples and oranges.
Something similar had to do with this situation of the growth of the number of homeless people in our state. Definitely contribute in many ways. The crisis, the housing crisis of 2008 to 2013, many Arizonans were a victim of that. If you get to Congress, what are some of the solutions that you would propose to prevent that happening right now, as we're seeing this, the affordability of housing and the increase of homeless people in our state?
Absolutely. So we need to address a couple of issues. One is the lack of police. In Laveen, they don't have a police department at all. Phoenix has to cover it, and Phoenix is actually taking South Mountain out, their local dispatch, and they're going to make it downtown, so it's going to be centrally located. That means that they're going to be further away from the people that need help. We have homeless that are coming in, and we aren't able to address it through our public safety. Our men and women in blue need help, and we have actually cut through Black Lives Matter, defund the police, all of these things where we don't have the police departments, and this homeless issue is now not being addressed. The other aspect on the other side, which is the mental health. And being in medicine for over 38 years, one of the things that we need to actually address is the mental issue that is taking place and is prevalent throughout. This is brought on by the drugs, by what's happening with the individual, especially coming from our borders. All of these things have to be addressed, and we're literally closing down those mental health facilities. This is a major concern. That's the reason why I went to Sonny Borelli and several other senators, and we are trying to put legislation in that will keep access so that the people can actually have medical care and do it in a safe environment so that we don't have them on the street, but they're actually taken care of.
Thank you. Mr. Mendoza, what would be some of the solutions that you would propose?
To prevent a 2008-style collapse?
Well, not necessarily that, but the housing crisis that brought into the homeless community also. So a lot of people lost their homes and ended up homeless. So what will you do to prevent, since the affordability in the housing right now in Arizona is so difficult also?
The only way to tackle that is through education. One solution is what? We give people what they need, right? The other solution is we build people up so that they can do the things that they need to do to be able to provide for themselves. And that should be our goal. Our goal should be to build people up, not to give them things.
Mr. Zink, quick follow-up to what you had said before. There are some people who would be concerned about the concept that police are as heavily involved with homeless as they have been, homeless folks, and you mentioned mental health situations. Would you in any way advocate other people being a part of a police force, perhaps more social workers, to be involved in those situations?
Well, the thing is that when you have drugs that are involved, being a healthcare provider myself and understanding there is volatility. While social workers are beneficial and they are in the medical realm, out on the streets, we need to have good paying jobs for our men and women in blue. It's vitally important. They need, right now, we're 3,800 police officers in Phoenix that need to be hired. And it's all because they've cut and taken back all of the funding for our police department. This is a vital issue that we need to have addressed, and that's one of the things that I will sit down as a congressman and talk with the chief of police here, and I've also had meetings with different people in the police department to address these various.
Mr. Mendoza?
the question again?
A more creative idea as it relates to dealing with homeless people as opposed to having more police on the street. Would you advocate having more social workers, something like that, working with police?
Yeah, definitely. We need both. We need to spend more money on both. And I hate to say we need to spend more money, but there's no other solution to this. And we need to also cut spending in other places and redeploy it to these more important, like our law enforcement, like our border. Yeah. And I do recommend that we need to have a mental health approach to the homelessness, where we could be, like we used to have an asylum program, right? And then we got one flew over the cuckoo's nest, and then everybody freaked out, said no more asylums. And there's a reason for that, because we do mistreat people in these asylums, but there's a point and a reason why they had them in the first place. Maybe if we could try again, but this time not be so abusive, that would be great.
Mr. Singh, have you seen any efforts that have impressed you in regards to, minimizing the situation with the homeless? And if not, what will you propose to be done immediately here, especially that we have seen some of those efforts where law enforcement have been already involved?
Absolutely. So one of the things is that I've talked with many of the business owners around 51st and Baseline, and they were complaining about the homeless. And we were talking to the police and actually cleaned that area up. We found places where mental health facilities that were on Grand Street that we have with Dream City. Those are issues where we could place those people in those basically the hospitals and the treatment centers. And so what they can do is they can then address the issues specifically that would be designed for that individual. And by getting them off the street, they get the health care that they need, but also they're not committing crimes, which is the number one complaint that most of my constituents are talking about, is they're coming in and they're literally stealing things off their front porch, out of their backyards, and they're endangering their wives and their children. And that's where we need to address that head on.
Can I make
Mr.
a
Mendoza, yeah, go ahead.
I do think that there is a risk that we might demonize people that shouldn't be demonized. There is a risk that people will commit crime, but I know one homeless guy. I know a lot of homeless people actually, but one guy's name's Carl. Anybody who lives downtown Phoenix knows him because he walks around downtown everywhere. You see him on Thomas and Central pretty much 3 times a day. He just walks around. These are incredibly beautiful people. Carl is an incredible person, and what I recommend for the American people is whenever you see a homeless person, feed them. Do something for them. Give them a shirt, give them some pants, give them some shoes. Even if they might take those shoes and sell it for drugs, at least you did something instead of depending on the government to do something for you.
Mr. Mendoza, we'll stay with you for this next question. When Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision, that sent the issue of abortion reproductive rights to the states. We anticipate there will probably be a ballot measure in Arizona in November, but that would only affect this state. What restrictions would you want to see on abortion? Would you like to see the federal government take this up and decide on a certain number of weeks, number of trimesters, or would you ban it altogether? What are your thoughts?
When it comes to this question, I like to bring up the idea of partisanship, because it's partisanship that's kind of keeping us back from solving all the other issues. We have so many more economic and social issues that might actually threaten the nation, but we're focused on this one issue because we can't come to a compromise. My suggestion is that we actually have a compromise. And maybe I'm wrong, and that's where I'm open to talk to Democrats about it. But into 3rd trimester, I think there should be a federal ban on 3rd trimester abortions that occur for elective reasons. Because I don't think it's the same thing when you're taking the tissue within a woman and you're taking it out in the 3rd trimester because there was a miscarriage. That's not an abortion. That's a different procedure, and I think we should differentiate these 2 procedures. The abortion should be defined as the willful termination of a pregnancy in the 3rd trimester. If it's happening in the 3rd trimester because you just don't want the baby anymore, I think that should be a crime. The Arizona proposition goes to any time period. Not even Europe, in all their liberalness, go that far. The Netherlands, they go up to 24 weeks. France, 15 weeks. So why are we so liberal here that we're more liberal than the Europeans? That's crazy. We should go to 20 weeks, no or little regulation. After that, there should be significant regulation.
Okay. Mr. Zhang?
Let me talk to the Catholics and the Christians here. What you have as my promise is this: I will make sure that Roe versus Wade is never a federal issue, that it stays at the state level, which is what our founding fathers had stated. As a pastor, let me tell you that there is no term whatsoever that we should abort a child. Exodus 20:13 says that thou shalt not kill. It is very clear we need a biblical issue that takes place. Proverbs tells us that if we train up a child in the way they should go, they will not depart from it when they're older. We do need to train up our children. We need to make men that will take responsibility. We need to have women there. God made us male and female. The fact that we have any crime whatsoever, state, show me the statute where the innocent pays with their life for a crime, but abortion does. I, as a pastor, will never ever state that abortion is okay. As a congressman, I'll make sure that it stays in the state. That you have my assurance.
Mr. Mendoza, is there any personal experience with abortion that you would be willing to share with the voters that are listening and watching right now?
Yeah, I can. When I was 19, 20 years old, I was with a partner, and I thought that she might have been pregnant. Both did, and we decided that we were going to go through with an abortion. And the reason was because I was afraid. I was afraid. We both were afraid. We didn't have the means to take care of a baby, and we also didn't believe that the future was going to be bright enough for us to be able to raise that baby. Thankfully, thank God, she was not pregnant, so we didn't have to go through with that. But that idea of having gone through with that does weigh on me every single day, and I do think about that often. I actually have to think about that I probably could have had that baby. That if she was pregnant, I would have been able to be a good father. I would have pulled out everything that I needed to do to provide for that family. But it's now that I realize that, right? So we have so many young people that are afraid to become parents. And I hope that we can actually do something to make them less afraid and give them the faith that they actually will be good parents. And that's how we can fix abortion. It doesn't get fixed in the after. You fix it before it even happens with good sexual education, with providing STD clinics and testing services and reproductive health services like provide, I don't know if I can say this, but giving out condoms, like that kind of thing. That is how we prevent, by giving education, by giving people the belief that they will come out ahead in life. That's how we prevent abortion.
Mr. Singh, do you have a personal experience with abortion that you would be willing to share with the voters that are listening and watching right now?
Absolutely. So one of the things that between my daughter and my son, my wife had gotten pregnant. She had an ectopic pregnancy. She had to have a DNC because it was not a viable pregnancy that she could take to term. It would have actually caused her harm. And so one of the things is that we had to go through that, but we also had to understand that the DNC is not an abortion. The thing is that inside the womb, the protection, the fetus itself, which by the way, in Latin means little child. So when they say fetus, they're saying little child, and we need to be able to take care of that child. It's a body in itself, and if it's my body, my choice, then the child also needs to have a choice as well. And the thing is that God gives us these children, and we need to be able to protect them. They're a separate entity. They have a constitutional right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How happy are they? And here's the other thing. Margaret Sanger in 1920 said that we need to take the deformities out. Where are the Planned Parenthood? Where is it that they show up? They show up in the black and brown populations. They're not in Scottsdale. They're in South Mountain, where I'm trying to represent. We need to sit down and we need to address this head on and make sure that our children are protected and that we allow them to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah, before anybody thinks that I'm pro-abortion, I want to tell a story that happened to me when I was in high school. I was in a biology class. Our teacher divided us into two groups, one pro-abortion, one anti-abortion. I was put on the anti-abortion side or the pro-choice side. And I tried arguing everything for my side. I did ethos, pathos, logos, and nothing seemed to work until I thought, oh, you know what? There's a little bit of pathos that I can hit here. And it's the story of, I have triplet siblings. And when my mom was pregnant with the triplets, the doctor told her that So it was 2 eggs, one divided, twin boys, and then the other egg. They told her that we can take this 3rd egg out, and that way the other 2 will have a greater chance of survival. Well, my mom decided not to, and thank God, because that 3rd egg became my little sister, who is the love of my life and the reason that I'm even standing here. And when I told that story to people in high school, the debate ended, and then one of the students got up and slapped me across the face as hard as he possibly could. And then he sat back down, and I said to him, do you want to slap my other side? You want to slap me on this cheek? And the teacher didn't do anything because I had kind of shut down the debate with that story. So before anybody gets the idea that I'm pro-abortion, I'm not. Life begins at conception. But what I'm worried about is that this issue is going to drive us to more deaths than abortion has ever had.
Okay, Mr. Zink, we have a few minutes left. I want to move on to the question of election security. Do you believe that U.S. elections are free and fair?
No, they're not. In fact, one of the things is that I've worked the Arizona audit in 2020, 2022. I've worked the Texas, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, Colorado, and Oregon audits as well across this nation. I can tell you emphatically without equivocation that the election was stolen, that we have to have a complete reform. One of the things that I've been working with senators and House of Representatives here in Arizona is the very fact that we need to have one-day voting or a weekend, which is a Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and a Tuesday. But at the end, where cheating starts is when we have a season of voting. And we have actually, because I worked on Kerry Lee's team, Abe Hamadeh's legal team, and Tita Peters' legal team, I have seen where the ballots, the mail-in ballots, where there were no signatures whatsoever that were opened and counted. I've seen where names that on the ballot were not the same names of the signatures. All of these issues have to be addressed. So we need to have one-day voting. We need to have paper ballots, hand-counted at the precinct. We need to get rid of the tabulators. And this is the major cause is why nobody actually looks at our elections, and they think that it's the safest, most secure election in the country. No, we're the laughingstock of our countries.
Mr. Mendoza?
We've always had election integrity issues. You can go back to 1877. You can go back to JFK. People argue that JFK didn't actually win, that the ballots got stuffed by the mob. You can go to the hanging chads in the Bush election. We're always going to have issues, but we need to improve our systems. Like one suggestion that I would recommend, and I know not many people know what this is, but blockchain-based ballot systems. A blockchain, you can distribute the information on that voter across multiple computers so that you can't actually change any of the votes. Everything is transparent. And that's one solution that would help. Also, going back to more localized precinct-based voting. Like, I shouldn't have to drive to some faraway high school to vote. I should be able to walk somewhere and vote from there.
Thank you. Well, it is time now.
Can I address
20
something very
seconds?
quickly?
20 seconds.
Okay, blockchain voting. Oh my gosh. Here we go. One of the things is that's extremely important to understand is that anytime you have a computer that the source code can be changed and altered. We actually proved this in court multiple times over multiple states. We need to address this, and that's how we address it. Paper ballots, hand counted at the precinct level.
I'm a software engineer. That's not how it works.
Well, it is time now, gentlemen, for closing statements. Each of you have 3 minutes, and to keep us on time, be politely cut you off if you run over, okay? Mr. Singh, let's start with your closing statement. You have your first minute.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me at this debate. I've really enjoyed it. What great questions we have. We have a major election on our hands, and we have to choose the right candidate for the right time. We have to have somebody who actually understands the issues and has the solutions. My opponent doesn't have that. Actually, he stated that he didn't know, and we need to sit down and start looking at what's happening in our country. We need to address these issues. We need to make sure that we have good paying jobs, that our children are not being indoctrinated any longer. Critical race theory needs to be with critical thinking skills. These are the issues that we need to do for our children. We need to actually increase the police so that our wives and our mothers and daughters are safe on the streets. That we need to increase the manufacturing here. All of these things that I have worked with senators and I've worked with House of Representatives, I've been doing the job and I haven't been elected. When you elect me, you will elect somebody who's already active in doing this. I'm not telling you what I will do. I'm telling you what I have done and what I'm working on right now in order to make this happen for our constituents. Here's the thing. We have had Raul Grijalva, Ed Pastor, and Ruben Gallego, all Democrats, all have sat and have run this area, and they've run it in the ground. Here's the other thing that I want to also know. My opponent was a Democrat. He changed parties and became a Republican in order to run in this race. We need to sit down and stop Democrats. We've had 24 years of Democrats running this area. Isn't it time for a change? We need a true Republican, somebody who actually will address this, somebody who will actually sit down and talk to the people and address these issues. This is so important. This election is vital. We literally will live and die by who gets into office. So this is very critical that we need to address and make sure we don't need Democrats no longer in CD3. We need a strong Republican that has the backbone that will go to Washington, D.C. and address these issues, that has a plan and doesn't know what to do. That's my opponent. So go to jeffzink.vote. I appreciate the fact that you're willing to listen, and let's make intelligent decisions now and understanding what's lays before us so that we can actually do the things to help our CD3. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Mendoza, you have up to 3 minutes for your closing statement.
Well, I'm not going to do the same thing my opponent does, because his attitude is exactly why we have so much partisanship. If you guys want to continue to have the same partisanship, to have the same division within your society, to have us keep going and fighting each other, then this is your guy. If you want somebody that's actually going to help this country and try to bring us together instead of dividing us, then I'm your person. My opening statement had to do with Lincoln's first inaugural, because that's where we have to return to. We don't have to return to anywhere else. And he wants to say that I'm a Democrat. You know what? This is actually the only district that will actually help me. And second of all, I helped this guy for 80 hours the first time he tried running for office. Do you think a Democrat could stand being with this guy for 80 hours? I'm not a Democrat, all right? I am nonpartisan. I'm running on the Republican Party because this is the party that has the ability to solve issues in our country. With that said, I would like to thank you all for joining me and listening to me. And you, the audience, you guys be smart. You guys know better than anybody else here what the issues are with our country. And if you want somebody like him, if you want somebody bipartisan, then that's me. If you want somebody who's going to divide this country further, that's him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mendoza. Mr. Zink, recent polling information here in Arizona, get it to the community today, show that Trump is leading in the favor of the voter because Biden is losing the support of the voters. If Trump wins Arizona, how would that impact your race?
Oh, absolutely. It's going to make it completely viable. The reason why is that we already know. You go back to Trump's term, $1.89 gas. We had less than $1 with eggs. And the thing is that we sit down and we look at this and we go, gosh, don't we wish we had that? Biden's economics has literally decimated what any income that people have today. For Donald J. Trump being my president, see, my opponent said that he didn't win in the last election. And I've gone all over the country and said that, and seen firsthand, yes, it did. So the thing is that Donald Trump will help me in getting into office.
Quick comment, Mr. Mendoza.
What was the question again? I didn't really get that.
If Trump wins Arizona, how would that impact your race?
Well, if he wins, it'll be after the election, so.
It continues to build on that favor of the voters. And
over the next, like, 2 years, you're saying?
Well, then, not the next 2 years before the election, obviously, right now.
Well, if Trump wins, I don't understand. If Trump wins the election?
He's
in
winning,
November?
he's leading here in Arizona in the favor of the voters.
Right.
Would you think this would impact your race?
Oh,
would
that he's
help
doing
you?
well?
Yes, that he's doing
yeah,
well.
yeah, definitely. Well, the Democrats doing so poorly is definitely going to help the Republicans do better. Yeah, that's kind of obvious.
All right, gentlemen, thank you both for being here. That brings us this particular debate to a close. Today's debate with the Republican candidates for Arizona Congressional District 3. As a reminder, the Arizona primary election is on July 30th, and early voting starts July 3rd. All registered voters can participate in the primary, including independents.
There are a lot of offices up for election this year, so we'll keep you hosting debates through the summer and also the fall. Head out to acmedia.org to see all the list of every local primary media partner, plus upcoming debates and where you can find them on TV, radio, and digital platforms. You can also see the full debate schedule, learn more about clean elections, and submit questions for future debates by heading to accleanelections.gov. On behalf of our partners at Clean Elections, the Arizona Media Association, Rister, and Bitfire Studios, thank you for joining us.